Right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back on Charlton's 1-1 draw against Southampton at St Mary's. A very, very good result. I
Yep.
thought a very good performance, albeit not maybe the most kind of eye-catching from us, but I don't think maybe the one thing I was really proud of watching that personally was it looked like we learnt the lessons from what happened at the Valley, because I think if we go toe-to-toe with a team like that, we've not got the ability and they'll tear us apart. And I thought, yeah, brilliant.
Well, we went into that game obviously knowing that Southampton have the players to tear us apart. Obviously, they did it at the Valley, and I know we were probably that was one to forget that day. You know, we were obviously well
That's
off
when
it.
they were out of form.
Well, yeah, exactly. No, but so going into this game, I think a lot of people were quite nervous. I think we were sort of hoping that we would be able to put up a fight in this one at least, because we didn't put up any sort of fight in the last one. But it was the perfect away performance, and I think we talk about how Charlton as a team, when they're on it and they're fighting for each other, how we can get results and grind results out. And today was a prime example of that, as when they applied themselves and they put that 110% in to a man, you know that you're able to get something from a game, and it doesn't matter who you're up against. We were coming up against the Southampton side that were in banging form. I think this, even after today, they're 7 unbeaten now. You know, so I think they were top of the form table or the last 6 games. So absolutely superb result, and one that really does give us a little boost, I think, as well.
No, definitely, and I think as I say, I think another really good thing was to see us go 1-0 down, which we have so many times this season, and then just folded and not really had an answer. And I felt in this game, we actually took it a little bit more calmly. And don't get me wrong, Southampton for large periods of that game were all over us. But I thought we reacted to the goal really well. I thought
we did.
We let the game settle back in. We didn't panic, and then we just slowly kind of chipped away. And we knew it was going to be pretty kind of scarce in regards to the chances we were going to create.
Yeah.
But it felt very much like the kind of performance we saw at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Where we would, even with the going behind, we stayed solid. We stayed very much in our kind of routine and our structure, but we would get odd little glimpses, and it was whether we could take advantage of those glimpses.
And even when it was 0-0 and we were getting pretty battered in terms of they dominated the ball. I mean, we'll see the stats will probably get them up in a set, but we were like, I think they had 70-something% possession in the end, and we had 28, something like that. So we were dominated completely in terms of possession of the ball. So you were exactly right. It was those moments where we were able to sort of hit them on the counter, get a little run up the pitch. They were the moments where we were going to need to really be clinical. And actually, obviously we'll go into the game in a sec too, but the goal came from us just pushing ourselves up the pitch and taking a really well taken finish, actually. So,
well, and I think when you talk about the stats, I think the interesting one when it comes to that is it was a game 72% to 28% on possession. It was 23 shots to 6. Yeah, the XG sat at 1.24 to 0.85, which isn't a huge divide. And I think the interesting thing when you come to that once again is looking at those performances we had at the beginning of the season, where it felt like, one, we have to ride our luck in games like that, and that's natural sometimes when you're getting dominated, but equally kind of restricting them to chances that aren't necessarily easy and distance and kind of crosses, and even the goal itself, when you look back on it, it was a
great header.
Yeah, great header. It just felt really good. And I think one of the things we questioned of the Charlton team, especially over not necessarily the last few weeks, but definitely we dipped in and out, is that fight and that desire, which was massively lacking against Pompey. And it felt like that was back in this game.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's an away performance, so we're away from home. Maybe it's a funny one because home and away does make different atmospheres. So when you're away from home, I think the Southampton crowd were getting a little bit frustrated when we were sort of shutting it up, and obviously they got the goal and their tails were up, and then we managed to peg them back. So then again, it was sort of their fans were getting on their back a little bit because we were able to shut the game out in the end. But you're right about the sort of desire. It was night and day from what we saw the other day, and that's just what we expect every week from the players, is that they give their all.
What do you think it is then? Why sometimes the team seems to turn up like that, and sometimes it just
I honestly think it's a difficult one to put your finger on, because some people will argue, oh, maybe it's fatigue. The last game against Portsmouth was not fatigue because we had a good rest before that game, and also Portsmouth had played on the weekend a few days before we played them. So that can't be levelled in that regard. Then does it come down to just a weak mentality in certain games? Pressure? I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it?
I think learning the league sometimes as well. The fact that you have to maybe in League One, and a lot of these players have come from a League One, either with us or actually a lot of our signings have. And I wonder if, I think League One is a lot more forgiving. You can have days like that, but you will still not necessarily, you won't get as punished as you do. Whereas I think in the Championship, you can start a game and you're not on it, you're punished very quickly. And it's very hard in games to then switch it back round. And I wonder if some of this season is a bit of a learning curve for a lot of these players, that you just don't have that luxury at this level.
100%. And also, I think it's being clever when you're not maybe performing as well as a team. It's having players in the side that know how to just sort of play the percentages, because that's, again, we've played teams that haven't been on their game and still beaten us. And it's down to the fact that they're just clever when they get those opportunities, they take them, they're clinical, or they play the percentages, like I just said, like they'll be clever in the way they keep the ball and stuff like that. So we are probably learning lessons this season, and you'll probably see actually with a full season behind them, some of these players will actually be a lot more wily in the next season to come, because they'll have picked up, like they'll have had experiences in games where they'll be like, yeah, we're not going to do that again or make that mistake again, and that's Jones will be learning all the time as well.
Well, I think that's, as I say, this is the perfect game to kind of learn that, because in regards to the way that first game went, it does clearly look like we have learned some lessons from that first game, and it is a developing squad. But yeah, no, brilliant overall. And before we start going into the game as well, obviously, starting lineup, we had TC coming in for Leeburn, I think it was. Seemed to be playing more in that kind of alongside Carey role. I didn't think he seemed like he was playing right off the striker. He seemed to be playing just behind Lyndon Dykes with Carey, and probably I think you had a whole nation celebrating when you saw the starting lineup, which I wasn't expecting, but Sichenje stepping into the starting lineup.
We did wonder when we were going to see him, actually, and I think we talked about what changes we might see after the Portsmouth game the other day, and we talked about maybe seeing like Rankin Costello come in for Cody. Cody held his place in the side, so that was an interesting one. But yeah, to see Clark, it was that dropped out, wasn't it? So obviously,
I wonder with Clark, maybe that is, he's played a lot of minutes since coming, and I suppose what the game and that lineup also kind of gave us was that option of, which I think we've become so accustomed to Ramsey being a right-sided centre-back that actually
push him out wide,
and someone like Sichenje coming in, or another centre-back, whoever it might be, is another option that maybe we have kind of forgotten about.
I think as well, bringing Sichenje in, he has quite a lot of pace. He's quite athletic, so I think maybe he was, and I'm not saying that Clark doesn't have the pace, he's still quite quick, but if you had Ramsey and Sichenje on that side, they had Sichenje was running up against them, I think, that in that half, or both halves. So that maybe was a thought process from Jones, was actually get a bit more athleticism on the pitch as well.
And I have to admit, on that note, I felt very sorry for the Charlton comms when you had Sichenje versus Sichenje, and Brownie was all over the place, getting them all muddled up, and it was
it's hard now, to be fair.
It's an absolute tongue twister if you've ever got one. But I thought as a starting lineup, I'd say it was interesting. And before the game, wasn't really sure. I know we'd discussed whether it was going to be who was sitting out on the right, who was the right-sided centre back, but it seemed to work.
Well, I think it made sense because Ramsey does have the pace to play that right wing back role, and he's quite good at pushing himself up the pitch as well. So actually, it made a lot of sense,
and it felt quite nice, albeit an unknown quantity with Sichenje in there. I thought it was actually quite nice to see that we could have a rotation in depth, where I didn't feel like we'd step down, and I always felt, as much as he's a kind of cult hero at Charlton, whenever Macca came in, I always felt like it was a downgrade. There was a bit of a risk, and with this one, there was, because you don't really know the unknown quantity, but it didn't. It felt much more of a like for like kind of switch. Bring it in. It didn't feel like as much of a step down, albeit there was that unknown quantity. So
in all, I think the changes and the sort of changes to the side, I wasn't unhappy with at all. I thought it was actually understandable, and I think obviously, ultimately, it worked. So, yeah.
Well, let's move into then the first half, and it's not particularly a hard one to go through because realistically, we instantaneously, it felt like we'd kind of stepped back into
We knew what we were going to see. Yeah.
kind of felt like we'd stepped back into that game before, and they were dominating. I mean, the amount of passes they were playing around us, you could tell we'd gone there with the tactic of similar to what we've kind of done before, quite route 1-y, very much counter, but that solid base. You come and break us down, and we might catch you on the counter at some point. I thought they were quite good. I was quite impressed with the way they were pushing it round.
Yeah.
Sichenje definitely
dangerous.
Yeah,
very good player. I think to be honest, he's one of the best sort of attacking sort of wing players in the league, I would say.
And interesting to see, obviously, a not too long ago ex-Charlton player in James Bree down the right, but in a very different setup and a very different team. And I think what we'd always discussed was James Bree ever particularly the right fit for Charlton?
Yeah.
And when I saw him in that Southampton team, I still felt, even watching him there, that he still has some of the shortcomings.
Do you know what? I was just about to say exactly the same thing. I thought actually they had a few moments in that game where they were able to, like, they sort of had a bit of space to run down that wing, down the right hand side, and we saw what he was doing at Charlton, where he'd sort of get sort of 3/4 of the way out the pitch and then just stop and cut back, and it sort of slows the play down. And I think actually they were things that frustrated us when we watched him. And maybe he isn't that completely athletic right-sided player. Still had that good technical sort of ability.
He put a few. I mean, it seemed like whatever he lost at Charlton at the end, which was just the ability to kick a ball in any capacity. He seemed a lot better on that. He put some really dangerous balls,
crosses,
free kicks, and I think that's what. Look, from what I've seen of him when he was successful at the beginning at Charlton, and from what I could see out of that game, he's kind of there for that.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that Southampton team does allow him is they move the ball round a bit quicker. He is more likely with quick triangles to get that little bit of space to cross it in. So he probably is more effective.
But I would say, like, I didn't watch that game and think, oh, I'm gutted he's still not here. Like, I sort of felt like, okay, yeah, he had his time at Charlton. He's obviously been given his sort of run in the side at Southampton, and good luck to him, to be fair. But I wasn't massively enamoured by him today. Like, he was all right.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, that first half, I mean, as I say, there's not really too much. I mean, there's lots of chances really there for Southampton. It felt like they were kind of knocking at the door. I thought we defended it quite solidly. They definitely did get through a few times there.
I think the Manning hit the crossbar.
Yeah, Manning hit the crossbar. Yeah, I mean, there was quite a few chances for them.
There were. We were putting bodies on the line.
Yeah, Kaminsky had quite a good save. I think it was, I want to say Charles, who I think broke in behind the back line as well.
Yeah.
We were creating very little. I thought the one thing I was a little bit disappointed with Charlton in that first half, it felt like, and I know we've discussed this so many times, but route 1 was the only option. And what was frustrating is I felt the way they were pushing, the way they were kind of pressing up against us, there was opportunities. And I think we did it a couple of times where a quick ball, and it wasn't about doing the most stunning pass, but sometimes Doc was, for example, in loads of space.
Yeah.
And a quick triangle and pass to him, and we could at least hit some form of counter.
Do you know someone who actually did break the lines a few times? And I've said actually since he's come in, he's actually quite good at it, is Connor Cody. What he's quite good at is getting his head up and quickly playing a pass that's not necessarily obvious at the time, but he just plays. It can be a bit risky sometimes because in order to break those lines down the middle, you've got to sometimes play it quite close to some of the other players. But he did it a couple of times, and that was what got us out of our sort of back line and up the pitch, and that was when we were able to break a couple of times with TC. Had a couple of chances where he ran it up the pitch down the right hand side once we broke the lines. But yeah, they were few and far between.
It definitely was limited. In that first half, it did feel like we'd kind of probably done what we wanted to. We'd gone there with the game plan. They were definitely going to get chances, and I thought Kaminsky was quite good in that first half. I thought he made solid. Made some solid saves, was claiming the ball quite well. And I thought coming off the back of especially the kind of performance of the last game, it was quite needed just to settle those. Not that I think he's the kind of character to need settling his nerves.
He's seasoned pro, isn't he? I think he's.
But it's always, I think, with any keeper, it is still confidence.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So,
But
yeah, that first half. So yeah, I think we've kind of gone over everything we can on there. Charlton were getting dominated, but we were in the game, and that's what we wanted.
Yeah.
Second half starts, and well, straight away, it was Stuart. And I listened to not long ago. I was just having a look over YouTube and thought I'd have a look at the highlights again, and it was the Southampton highlights, and their comms called him the Loch Ness Drogba.
I mean, he's a dangerous player, and I will say his header was taken incredibly well, considering the fact that he was quite far from the goal.
Mm-hmm.
He had Jones on his back. He took it very well.
And I think Sichenje was kind of he created that little bit of space to be able to get the cross in. As I say, it wasn't a great cross. It was kind of behind him, and I still to this moment don't really. I think there's an argument to say that how tight we were to him was a little bit poor. But then was Jones necessarily expecting it to drop?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
And I think you probably 9 times out of 10. That's a really scruffy header.
Or it loops over the bar or something like that. Well, to be fair, it was still quite a loopy header, but it just obviously he just timed it incredibly well. And actually, Kaminsky couldn't do anything about it. It was a great header,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the worry when that goal went in, your biggest concern is last time. I think we conceded four goals in 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was.
And it was absolutely abysmal. And
it's etched in my brain.
Well, and as we said it earlier, I actually thought we handled that next bit quite well.
We did. We responded well.
Yeah, they still carried on the way they were, but I felt we were getting little chances, little breaks. Albeit they were still dominating. We were playing the game quite well, and we felt like we dropped back into that kind of 0-0 mentality. It didn't feel like we'd changed our game plan drastically.
Yeah.
We knew we'd have to press up a little bit more. We know. I mean, you text me, didn't you?
Yeah.
At 1-0 down, it was like, well, that's that done.
I did. I literally said that I think that's the game done now, because I did not see us getting back into that game. And I think we've spoken a lot this year about how we are poor at creating chances. But what I will say is we do always have a couple of moments in games, and they are the big moments where actually if you can be clinical and have a player like Sonny Carey, who actually obviously proved to be the man, we can still hurt teams at times. It just isn't. We just don't create many. That's all.
Well, I think it's frustrating because sometimes when we do create the chances as well, it's not always rocket science what we're doing, and you do just sometimes think, why don't we do that more often?
Yeah.
And sometimes we just move the ball a bit quicker. And
what happened, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, look at the goal. It gets out to Amari Bell, and
great little bit of play.
Well, Amari Bell running up against. We talk about James Bree, but he had him on absolute toast.
He did. Yeah.
And jinked in, jinked out. I thought it was beautiful. It was like
it was really nice play.
It was really, really nice play. But what I was most impressed with there was such an opportunity there just to get a bit carried away and take the shot. And I think that's where we see sometimes the naivety of someone, although he scored quite a few goals, well, I say quite a few, but a few goals this season, like TC.
Yeah.
I think TC does that and then goes for the shot.
Yeah.
And I thought the calmness then play it across to Doc, but the one that was even more impressive than that, Doc's got a strike, but he laid it off again.
I thought Doherty was just going to, because he does have a pop every now and again. I thought he was going to put his laces for it, but like you said, his composure to just nudge the ball again.
And if we're going to nudge it on to anyone else in our squad, Sonny Carey is the one player you want. And it wasn't his sweetest strike. He got it nicely.
Went through legs, didn't it? That's the thing.
Keeper?
Yeah, so I think he struck it well, to be fair. Like as in he's hit it with power. The surface obviously was in his favour because it was a skiddy pitch today. There was a lot of drizzle in during the game, but it looked like on the replay they had gone through one of the defenders' legs. So I think maybe the keeper saw it quite late. He still got a hand to it, to be fair, didn't he? But his hand obviously palmed it into the side netting.
I don't think it's a keeper shocker, but I don't think he'll be looking back happy on it. I think he'll like to think that he could have got. But as you said, it came through a lot of bodies pretty quick.
Also, Carey managed to get it out his feet quite quickly and hit it quite quick. So I think probably he managed to just get it out of his feet quick enough to catch the keeper off guard a little bit. And I think it was a good strike.
And it was, as we discussed earlier, relatively unexpected. I think not many Charlton fans were thinking that was going to happen. No. And before that, I suppose one thing we can say is we weren't completely inept in making chances, and not too long before that, we had the Lyndon Dykes chance, which I have to admit, when I saw it at first, I celebrated.
Yeah, no.
I celebrated. I thought it was a goal. And when you look back on it, it's a tough one. I think I can understand why the decision was given. Do I see another planet where that decision isn't given?
Could have.
It could have. I think it's a really tough one. From the ref side, the arm is out. And
That's think what made it look more like he's controlled it with the top of his arm rather than his shoulder.
And I think when I even look back on the highlight,
you still can't quite work out.
It still
where
sits in a bit of a grey area.
You can see why the ref's given it, and actually, when it's at their ground, it's more likely going to be given as a foul rather than play on. But he took the strike well after.
Beautifully. But it was nice because it just, as I say, even though we knew chances was going to be limited, it just seemed to give a bit of belief.
Well, it proved exactly that
moment could happen.
It proved that we can still break them down. So yeah.
And it wasn't long after that we had our kind of pretty scrappy ball crossed in.
Yeah. Jones won the header.
I mean, Jones won the header.
Yeah.
Then Cody, I think, kind of missed it.
Was it Cody or Doherty? I can't remember.
Think it was Cody,
but
I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I think it was Cody or Doc.
Yeah.
Kind of went and kind of threw their head at it, kind of missed it. Then I don't know who it was next to him as well.
It was Dyke.
Was it Dyke?
Yeah.
Who just kind of kicked the ball, and it seemed to for an eternity trickle. And I didn't know if it was going in. I was kind of like really off my seat. In the end,
it was a weird one. It was very scrappy, but like you said, it just trickled past the post. So, but just another example of us putting in the mixer and just creating a bit of chaos. Like,
it's from 1-0 down to a potential opportunity to go 2-1 up. It felt like kind of that had come out of nowhere. I then felt the game, once again, the whole routine of the game is we never intended to go there to try and dominate possession and all of that. But I felt like there was at that side, we'd scored a goal, we'd had a bit of a warning sign. We'd had a warning sign before the goal. I think it did create a bit of nervousness with them.
Well, do you know what as well? I think we've been there as Charlton fans as well, actually, is when you're dominating a game and then you don't go like 2 or 3 up and then you get pegged back, there's a nervousness in the crowd because you're like, oh, we don't deserve this, like you start feeling a bit sorry for yourself. And you could see that Southampton were probably feeling that way. They were like, oh no, we've sort of created so many chances in this game, all of a sudden we're 1-1 and now Charlton are knocking on the door. And you start to see a bit of nervousness maybe with the defence and stuff like that. So that's what I think we saw. But what I will say is after that little spell, probably the last like sort of 5 minutes after the goal.
Before you go into that, do you also think that little spell we had as well? I thought it came quite in line as well with Leeburn coming on the pitch.
It did. He made
Leeburn came on just
he
goal,
was,
but I thought his pressing, his flick-ons, his everything, he seemed really up for it.
Yeah, 100%. And he's the sort of player that when he comes off the bench, he's a handful. Like he's not slow. He's got his physicality, and like you said, he put himself about, and you could tell actually he was bang up for that game. And he made a big difference because all of a sudden we were able to we had Dykes and Leeburn up there who could hold the ball a little bit better.
Yep.
And then that meant we could sort of push ourselves up a little bit more.
And I also think it's the one we're going to go on to a little bit later, but also replace a pretty lacklustre TC in that game. So I think it made a difference as well, and it saw maybe that difference in just performance and want and desire towards the game as well. But as you say, I'll let you carry on now.
Yeah, so like obviously after that sort of spell we had probably the 5 minutes after the goal went in, Southampton really then took the sort of momentum back, and I think we were holding on at the end. I think they had about 4 or 5 corners.
When the extra time came up, and there was obviously the incident.
Mins, wasn't
well, there was the incident just before extra time, which was the headbutt red card.
Yeah.
I've seen a replay back of someone who put a TikTok up, and it was one of the best theatrics from Connor Cody, and I like it. I like it in regards to playing the dirty. Look, as much as some people say you don't want to see it, one thing we've criticised this Charlton team of is not taking opportunities, not trying to play the game, not trying to play the dirty side, which every team should have it in them.
But everyone does it against us. But
the guy did place his head towards Cody. Cody thought, okay, do you know what? I'm going to go for this. The guy absolutely lost his head. He got
subbed down,
got subbed off after, but he looked like he was going to have a scrap with the whole team at one point. He was getting held back.
Apparently, I think I heard that like Leeburn came storming in afterwards and sort of clipped him as well, so he probably was pretty rattled. Yeah.
But when so that caused kind of the 10 minutes to go, which I wasn't expecting. I have to admit, I thought it was going to be 5 or 6 minutes. That 10 minutes was
shaky.
Yeah,
I was sweaty actually.
I was sweating bullets, and it felt like it went on for an eternity, and it was all Southampton.
We defended it well, though.
Yeah, we did.
We battened down the hatches, which is basically what we needed to do.
Yeah.
And actually, grinding that result out in the end, obviously seeing it out till the final whistle, that point could be huge at the end of the season.
And you've only got to see that those players put absolutely everything into it. When that final whistle went, I think 90% of the team just fell to their knees and just celebrated, but looked shattered.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And at the end of the day,
all you can ask.
Points can get won in this division. There is a fight and a desire and a want that will get you through games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you actually look in a relegation scrap, you've only got to look at certain teams at the moment, like your West Broms, who look like they've kind of lost that and are so torridly out of form. And actually, we will pick up enough points with that mentality. If we go into every single game for the rest of the season, you will pick up more than enough points to get you over the line, especially as certain teams will start to season's over and that last kind of running of the season. So I was really proud just to see that side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something we've been screaming out for. We've had it in spells, but there's been sort of games where we've just not looked like we were up for it. And today we definitely did. And actually, like you said, playing for the shirt, for the badge. At the end of the game, you see him going over to the away fans, and you could tell like there's a unity there, which is really nice.
When hugely needed, not maybe as much as after the Millwall game, but after that Pompey result.
Yeah.
A performance like that is just needed to just reinstate with the fans. Because the Pompey one was so lackluster, and this one was so the opposite. And no, overall brilliant. Brilliant point. Performance was exactly what's needed. I'm not going to sit here and say it was the most brilliant, perfect performance, but I think it was for the ability and what we had in that game.
I think
it's a perfectly executed plan.
And the perfect away performance. That's how sometimes when you go away, especially somewhere like St Mary's, where they're in great form as well, it's like sometimes you've got to just do that. You've got to make it really nasty for them, and we did that. So, yeah.
Well, let's go on from there then on to the kind of key performances and any players that maybe also kind of we felt on the more negative side. I don't think there was any outright dreadful performances today, but there definitely was some on the more concerning side. Let's start with those and get those ones out of the way. So I think a place to start, and someone who doesn't seem to have the form he did in the early parts of the season, and something to me just doesn't quite look right. We nearly brought him in a few weeks ago on one of the games, and I can't remember which one it was, but that would be Kane Ramsey.
Yeah, so Kane Ramsey's a player that we, at the start of the season, were singing his praises to the hills. We were saying how well he was playing, which he was, to be fair, and he still has that massive potential. He's athletic, he's quick, he's strong, he's able to trap players. We have, though, seen a drop-off with him, and I think it all coincides with that time where he got sent off against Millwall. That seems to have been the catalyst for him to start sort of regressing a little bit, and I can't put my finger on what it is, and I don't know if it's because he has had a bit of time out of the side and maybe struggled to get back to where he was before.
But he hit the form again after the set. It wasn't against Millwall. That was way before then.
I mean that was a one. No, it was. It was
a home game. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of the recent one, but it was against Millwall. I felt though he came back after that and started to get back in the squad, and then started to show little glimpses. But I don't know. Yeah, he just doesn't. There's something a bit off. I think my biggest concern is the amount of silly mistakes he's making. We had that one where he was going to trip up recently. We've had little moments in games, and even in this one, in that first half. And I thought the first half was where the performance was noticeably poor. I thought the second half it was a little bit more solid, but he just doesn't quite seem that immovable force. And sometimes now, I think at the beginning of the season, we always had, he loves a slide tackle. And he goes in and you think he's going to win everything. And at the moment, he's had a few where he's gone in on like in the box and stuff. And I feel more on the side of, oh, please don't give away a penalty. Dangerous. And I never had that feeling towards him before.
With it, I agree with that. Definitely defensively, he's had a few more errors in his locker. But not only that, I've noticed like before he had quite a lot of confidence in sort of getting his foot on the ball and running the ball forward, or running into a bit of space and playing the ball forward. He's definitely a bit more cautious with that now, and I don't know if that coincides with the fact that we're not probably playing as well going forwards as well, and that probably is a factor. But there's definitely times in games where he could just open up a little bit, and actually a prime example of that is when Clark came in. He was doing exactly that. Even when we weren't playing so well, he was still actually looking to push up the pitch. So I think he's got a bit of work to do in terms of sort of stamping his sort of authority back on the side.
Because I think at one point we'd always say if he was fully fit, he was arguably, him and Jones were like absolute. We always said him, Jones, and Amari Bell. And I think when you actually look at a player we'll go on to in a bit, but Sichenje's performance today and how Harry Clark, albeit I think he had a bit of an off game against Pompey, the way he's performed so far, there's an argument to say if he's not careful, he could easily.
His place isn't guaranteed.
Yeah, his place isn't guaranteed. And I'd argue over recent weeks, the person who I would 100% have said that be the case seems to be a little bit in jeopardy, and I don't think it'll be helped by performances like Sichenje's today, and equally Harry Clark as say, because that, to me, at the moment, if you said to me off the back of this game, and it is only one performance from kind of a new player coming in, but I think I'd be looking at that saying, do you know what, on merit of recent and some of the concerns, and I think one thing Nathan Jones doesn't want, and probably the biggest concern, is those silly errors, which in the way we play could be so essential. We go 1-0 down in the first half due to a silly mistake. It's catastrophic, and we saw that against Pompey with Kaminsky.
No, it's definitely a great point, and I think a lot of the times when players make errors, it's a confidence thing, and I think maybe that's it. He's got to build his confidence back up a little bit and have a few good performances in his locker so that he can really start to push on. But hopefully we do see him turn a bit of a corner, because he has definitely been off it a little bit recently. But let's see.
I have the confidence he 100% has the ability to get there. Maybe he's just going for a bit of a bad patch.
Yeah, players do. Players do.
And moving on to the second one that I felt negative, and today, for me, one of the worst performances, not necessarily because it was a very difficult one attacking-wise today, but I thought the whole attitude, the whole persona of everything, from borderline not far off the starting whistle, was TC. I thought it was a really... I was getting so frustrated with him, and I thought his effort was... One thing I've always said is I think he runs around like an absolute madman, and I felt he was just kind of jogging around the pitch, and once again we talk about silly mistakes, but the want and desire of every player on that pitch was to win a header, was to win this, and he was just being bullied out of the way. And even on defensive ways, there was one on the edge of the box, and I can't remember if it was first half or second half, where their player just nicked it off him. It was so unbelievably easy in such a dangerous area.
Yeah, I think he is... Oh God, it's broken record stuff, and we talk about it regularly with him. It's the hot and cold, the up and down performances. We're begging for a bit of consistency, and I think like when he enters the pitch, and you can tell straight away when he's really up for it, when things are clicking. But there's far too many games where it just doesn't. You mentioned like the times where he was bullied today, and maybe the times where he could have been a lot stronger in tackles and not lost the ball on the edge. Well, no, but I was just about to say, I was just about to say like some of the attacking play where we actually had a few moments, especially in that first half. He had one where he sort of had a bit of freedom down the left-hand side, managed to run at them, but then it was those little final passes again just aren't there, and it's so frustrating.
Final, but I thought the moments where he was just booting it out, he got it on the edge of the area and cleared it, but like cleared it out in like a terrible area, and just gave the ball straight back to them. I genuinely think that's one of his best performances.
He was subbed off, wasn't he? And I think you know, when he's not on it, he is a bit of a liability in the side. And like I say, I think we've seen that far too many times this season, and I really wanted to see him sort of thrive.
Before we see performances like that coming through, and we've seen now a decent chunk of him in the Championship, I start to sit in the camp now of, I think there 100% needs to be another quick attacking, similar type of player to allow competition, because I also do worry whether there's I don't think it's in his personality. I don't think it's an arrogance, but I think there's a lack of competition for his style of player that maybe gives him this comfort. Maybe. I wonder if maybe just if you do have another option where he could come out, because I don't believe if we want a incredibly quick, pacey, do we really see Fevrier as a competition? Not particularly. Tanto, once again, I always say he was a slightly different player to TC. I think we need that other winger option that would give him the ability to come out of the squad, because I have to admit at the moment, the more I see, we can't, if we're looking at this as a next season option and what we need to look at in the summer, I sit more on the side of he's going to become more of a squad player next year if this is how he finishes the season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think he is one that we already, since we haven't relied on him so heavily now that we managed to get a few more players in the door in January, we saw him becoming more effective, sort of making an impact off the bench, and I think that's what a lot of fans see him more as, like an impact sort of player now. But you have to have that player to be able to rotate with him anyway, like you said. So maybe it's something we'll see in the summer, but I think his contract might be up in the end of this season, and I think they're trying to negotiate. I think they've
trigger another
so
year. I think they've triggered a year take to next year, and I think they want to try and negotiate a proper contract. I think I have to admit, I think Kane Ramsey's not in a far off boat from that. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure.
There's a couple, I think.
I think there's a couple who are in a similar kind of scenario. But yeah, no, overall TC, for me, it was just a really off game. And as you say, I think for the rest of the season, I'd much rather see him running up against tired legs in the 70th minute.
Yeah, I think that might be where he's best at the moment, and still learning the league.
But the difficulty with that is who goes up alongside, because we've seen the Lieburn Dykes, which worked well today when everything was quite tired, but
Kelman's not getting much of a game at the moment, is he? Looking a bit off.
Kelman looks a bit off. He looks, as much I wouldn't bring him into the negative performances, I think Kelman looks like he's struggling.
He's not had much of an impact when he's come on, has it?
Yeah, but I don't know. Some of that is the games he's coming in.
I was going to say he's coming into top games.
Is it sometimes with him that he needs the confidence of playing week in, week out?
Yeah, I think strikers do need that.
I see him as a slightly more longer term project with him.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I want to see better, but I'm willing to give him the time. And he's had definitely good spells in this season.
Yeah, he's got the potential, hasn't he?
Well, let's take away from the negatives, because to say overall, I think there's a lot to be positive about, and let's move into those. So the first one to start on, Amari Bell.
Yeah, he's so good. Like there's no coincidence that when we fell massively out of form, he got injured and we didn't have him in the side for a good run of games.
I think the amount of points we picked up with him in the starting lineup
makes a huge difference. Like, he is so good. Like, he's so composed. We talk about how good he is at just dribbling around players, getting the ball out from the back. Not only that, he's really solid in the air. He's very, very physical. He's strong in tackles. And he makes good decisions. And today he created that goal for us. Like, he was able to push himself up the pitch as well as be.
Well, and I also thought, because I thought there was a bit of a ghost in the starting lineup with Chambers. I didn't really think he really did anything too much in the game. But Amari Bell seemed to be playing the role of left-sided centre back as well as left wing.
Yeah, he pushed himself
played
up.
It so amazingly well. And I think what we have seen, and I do think this is something we discussed a couple of weeks ago, is that Cody coming in does allow like Amari Bell to push forward more, and he is much more confident now to pick up the ball and just push into space. And I would say he's our best defender to do that.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. And
he's definitely got the most confidence, and I think that's his days of being a wing back.
How nice is it to have a defender that can actually dribble the ball and actually looks confident on the ball? And even when he's getting closed down, he's able to like look up and sort of play a sensible pass, which again, when we look back at, I know I don't want to hammer Gillespie too hard, but when he used to get closed down and he didn't have time on the ball, that would be out of the ground, or
look up there,
do you know what I mean? And he just didn't have that. Unfortunately, just didn't have that in his locker.
Alex, leave Gillespie alone. That's how we won the playoff semi-final. So
no, I don't like hammering it, to be fair. But
he's Amari Bell as well. Watching his kind of performances, and especially in that attacking sense, I think it's where some of my frustration comes with Kane Ramsey, because it's kind of what he should also be doing. When the ball comes out on the right, sometimes Cody could come in and cover that area, and he can push forward.
This is what I just said when we were criticising him earlier. Like, he's got the chances to actually push himself forward, and Bell does it with a lot of confidence. And he's got the, like I said, he's got the quick feet, he's got the sort of nous. I think some of that comes down to his experience as well. He's played a lot of games for Luton. Played at a high level, so you can see it. Like, he's a cut above some of those other players on the pitch, and defensively he's an absolute rock for us. And actually, I hope we can sort of build a sort of solid squad around having sort of Bell, Jones, and then maybe Sichenje or Ramsey for a sustained period of time, because I think it will really, really push us forward, actually, having that sort of solid back line.
I think the only way in which you do that with Amari Bell is we have got to manage his minutes.
Yeah, we have.
And that's the problem, is I don't think he can play a full 90 week in, week out. He will hit a point where he has an injury.
Yeah.
But players like Sichenje may allow that, because he is a similar kind of mould of player. And I thought overall, just he shows how important he is, and that moves us over to the other side, and the one, as we said earlier, whole of Kenya must have been. You could hear him from here. It was pure elation seeing him in the starting lineup. The unknown quantity, and I was bloody impressed. I have to admit, I when that game finished, if you were to ask me for a man of the match performance, it would have been between Amari Bell and Sichenje.
Yeah,
really, I think,
yeah. No, I'd agree. I think like we've said before, we had no real understanding of what he brought, like, at all, because we haven't really seen anything of it.
I think his athleticism is the only thing from clips I've seen.
Yeah,
that I could say with confidence, he clearly isn't a slow defender.
You're coming from a league that you'd argue is a lower sort of standard. So to come into the Championship where there's a really high pace of game, how is he going to sit in there? He did bloody well. Like, when you think that he's never played in English football,
Want to be in that regard, then coming up against Sichenje.
Well, also your first game is
good,
Southampton away, who are in brilliant form as well, and they've got quality players all over the pitch. So what we saw today was the fact that he is able to display that athleticism. He closed down multiple times where he nicked the ball back. He was a bit clumsy at the beginning, and I think that could have been nerves, could have been a little bit of like sort of getting up to speed.
Probably, and there's also, I think, with that, I think the allowance on giving him that I think the first one that was kind of the penalty, not penalty, edge of the box. I thought with that, I'm pretty sure it was Kane Ramsey who had maybe made a mistake for him to get past him in the first place. But also, I can only imagine the pace of the Championship is a hell of a lot quicker than what maybe he has historically been used to.
It will be.
And you will have to allow him for that. He's going to come into a game and it is going to take a while. But I thought after those kind of first few, what looked like shaky moments, I think he got nutmegged at one point in that penalty free kick shout. He really just grew and grew into the game. And the thing I was most impressed with is he clearly has been told by Nathan Jones to do what Lloyd Jones does, which is push in really close to a defender. But that extra bit of pace he had to do it, he was on top of those players. And sometimes, yes, you'll give away a foul for that, but it's the way we play and what we are so successful at. And when we've seen our best defensive performances throughout this season, we have absolutely strangled people's midfields by pushing into them quickly. And I thought we saw a great example of that with him today.
And you can see why he's been brought in for that exact reason, is that he will slot right into that sort of philosophy of pushing high, getting quickly onto your attacker. And not only that, he was very solid with like sort of getting himself on the end of blocks and headers and stuff like that. And he just showed willing to just put his body on the line. And you can tell he's a proper old school sort of style defender. He will clatter into people. And we were chatting earlier, I'm saying we'll probably see him get a few red cards throughout his time at Charlton.
You don't mind if the law of averages says that there's players we've had in the past who Ryan Innitt comes to mind where you say the law of averages is he's a liability.
Yeah.
With him, if you want someone to play in a certain way, you sometimes have to accept they are going to make mistakes sometimes, and it is going to cause maybe the odd red card. But if what you're gaining out of that 90% of the time is good, then I think you can allow for that.
Yeah.
And then the final one before we move on from him that I was really impressed with as well, I thought his range of passing was quite good. He seemed to hit the ball up with a little bit more purpose than others, but also there were points where he got it, and instead of just kind of, I think sometimes our defenders can pick up the ball and look a little bit lost.
Even Jones sometimes, who does get a bit of time on the ball. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
I thought quickly he would play it from the right just into the middle again. And even though it wasn't the most expansive a pass there, it was just done in a slightly quicker way. It seemed a bit more confident. Yep. And as I say, the kicking upfield didn't seem quite as route one as just to lump it as high as possible.
It's more progressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I was really, I have to admit, for an unknown quantity that we weren't too sure coming in, his performance today, the instant feeling was, I want to see more.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, I think we will see more because we've just spoken about Bell potentially, obviously can't be run into the ground. There's going to be opportunities for him, and I think it's going to be really exciting to watch how he sort of takes to his time, his early time at Charlton. So
what lovely side of it as well for the second half of the season to actually see depth, because that's something we struggled with so much. At that first half of the season. And moving on from that, we talk about new signings and fresh impetus, and someone that is not a new signing but just seems like a breath of fresh air. I think brilliant performances coming in. Got an assist today, but captain Greg Doherty. I thought the defensive side and the dirty work, he was the perfect player, experienced head to have in that midfield for the kind of game tactic we were going for today. And I thought him alongside Cody, we discussed about that voice and that leadership, and I thought they both showed that in abundance today. But Greg Doherty, for me, just edged it with getting the assist, and I thought some of his tackles and everything going in was just a really solid performance. I really liked it.
It was just a quality Greg Doherty performance. Like we know what mould of player that he is. We have had frustrations with him at times this year because he's been a bit off it, but the last few games, probably no one in the Portsmouth game was good, but before that, the few games that he'd come back in for, he's been so good, and like he's given everything. He's played that leadership role, and again today, like you said, he just put himself about, worked really hard, put in those challenges we know that he's so capable of, but then also that composure to set up the goal. Yeah, 5 stars for me, like out of 5 for him. He was
Yeah,
quality.
no, I agree. I think it was an absolutely brilliant performance, and as I say, I kind of feel sorry, but I like the depth options we got now. When we were talking recently about that centre mid being Karoy Anderson, in that game today, I think Karoy Anderson would have been absolutely run riot, and I don't know if he was the centre mid against Southampton in the first game. I can't remember, but
yeah, I can't remember either. But Doherty was that sort of moulder player we needed today, wasn't it? Yeah,
and I'm sure as the future goes on, he will still bring us frustrations and difficulties. And do I think he's the absolute long-term answer? No, but he seems back in that I love Greg.
He's a fighter as well, which is what we
when he's doing it and he's in this kind of form and when he's playing well and he's putting everything in, I really like him. I think he's a character. I'm a really big fan. So, and moving on to the final one, who I think, strangely enough, I think there was other performances probably on a similar level, and people I put on a similar level. I thought Dykes had a good performance today. I thought he wasn't at his absolute. I thought he did everything he needed to. It was a tough game. He dropped in deep a few times. I thought was really good and was willing to work for the team to try and kind of get some space. But someone who I'd put just above him because he scored the goal, Sonny Carey. And as I say, I don't think it was a stellar performance from him. I thought it was a tough game. I thought there was points where I maybe hoped he'd get a little bit more involved. But he is so important to us. And that those moments for that goal, and that's why he's in this list, because there are certain players who, even when they're performing bad, will just get the goal and be so integral. And for him, he is, isn't he? He's a goal out of nowhere every game.
That's been him the whole season. Like he's on 8, I think now 8 or 9 this season, 8. So that just shows you, like, for a player who's obviously a midfield attacking mid essentially, he is one player that is just willing to put his foot through the ball, and we've seen it so many times this year. He's won us games, like the West Brom. I was there for the West Brom game at the Valley, and it was last minute of the game. He's just put his foot through it. Like we see it regularly from him, and the thing is, he will put his foot through the ball, but he'll do it with purpose as well. These shots, he even had a shot in the first half that he drilled just wide of the post. He had the keeper stranded. Like if it had been on target, it's another finish. So he just brings us that attacking goal threat that we desperately need, and without him we are so lacking that. So and also we hammered him a little bit for the Portsmouth display, so he's gone on from that and he's really sort of turned it around. And
I still feel like he's playing with a player with not as much confidence at the beginning of the season, but it's just so integral to have a player like that who can create something out of nothing. And some of the side of which we've said about, it's one of the reasons why we do still quite like, even with all the frustration, someone like a TC being in the squad, because we haven't got many places where you just have something out of nothing. And especially with the performances in a day like today, you need a player who just in that moment will have balls of steel. And we've seen it so many times when we've seen Sonny Carey in so many occasions. I think against West Brom he scored a really good, I think it was the one where it bounced off between the keeper should have better for the corner right in the last minute. We've seen so many examples of it where he's just come clutch at the right time.
Yeah, and that's it. And we know if you said it before, you want it to fall to anyone in that position, it's him. And he just showed again why he's so lethal. I run out of words for him really, because actually he is somebody that is so crucial to our side. And he always steps up. Like he always does. So brilliant.
Well, there you go. That is Southampton away. Definitely.
I will be honest. Like I didn't expect us to get anything from today before the whistle went, because of what
I said to you at the end of the last episode. Do we expect to go for probably getting a point from this game? And you, I think even then were.
I was like, a point would be absolutely unreal, and it is, to be fair. That's a brilliant point, which could prove to be huge at the end of the season. And it just also, it sort of stops that downward spiral. If we then lose today, it's like you've had the bad performance at Portsmouth. You'd argue if we lost today, you wouldn't be enamoured with our performance, but you are now, because we've come away with a point.
And I think if we had lost, it would have applied even more pressure to probably, when you look at the fixtures coming up, it's probably our most important. It's a huge game. Tuesday night, 7:45 kickoff.
Squeaky.
West Brom away.
Yeah, I mean, they lost again today. They lost to Coventry, and obviously the Coventry are flying high, so there's no shame in that. But we know for a fact they're in bad form. We know that their confidence is pretty much on the floor. We are going away from home, which I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, really.
Well, they're also a team out of form who aren't going to sack their manager just before they play us, which has been that's pretty much the case. Every team we think we're licking our lips at, they put
What to right against Sheffield United?
They did, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but they've just only recently brought in a new manager, haven't they? Which
as we said, we were quite shocked the last game. I think he's a 34-year-old plucked from the MLS.
Yeah, which is a bizarre choice. But I think you really, really have got to get a minimum of a point in that game. A point's not a bad result in the grand scheme.
I think I texted you earlier, and for me, it sums up that the importance of that match so incredibly well. And for me, it's a must not lose. I think a point is okay.
Yeah.
I think 3 points is what we should be going for, and is pretty essential. And 3 points would put us in a I think we're already in a healthy position, but I think 3 points puts us in a very healthy position. But losing to them is we can't even fathom that. Yeah. And I think that'll be interesting to see what kind of game plan we go in with. Because, I mean, when you look at them, they are a team who, if I tell you this stat, you'll probably kind of, if you had a drink, you'd spit it out. They've not won this year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is nuts.
And that includes...
we're nearly in March, aren't we? Yeah. Well, halfway through February.
I mean, I suppose if you give them a penalty... They won on penalties against Swansea in the FA Cup. That's it.
But league.
Yep, league not won. And in that, they've had a 5-0 loss to Norwich, a 3-0 loss to Portsmouth, 2-0 loss to Coventry. Quite a few little scrappy 0-0s, 1-0s. But yeah, overall, it looks like their biggest thing is they're struggling to score. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. But yeah, they're struggling to score and they're leaking goals, and it's the recipe for disaster. But I think they probably looking at that must be away from Sheffield Wednesday the most out of form team.
They are. I tell you what, though, they are going to be bang up for this game though, because this is make or break territory now, isn't it?
Do you think it's a better game? I'm normally very much our home form is where we picked up a lot of our points this season, but I think actually weirdly, probably a game that actually being away,
better
if we play the game right and we play the crowd and we get the pressure up and we play this right, I think that it could be an absolute pressure cooker there that they clearly could fold under, which they've done a lot.
They essentially know this game is a must win. Like it is for them. Like it's a must win for us really, but way more for them because they are in the doldrums right now. And Leicester.
Well, at the moment it's them and Leicester who are getting
Leicester
kind of
picked up a point today. I know they conceded late, but they and also like Leicester. I just see Leicester picking up eventually. They got enough quality.
When you've only got to look at the teams around them, Blackburn have hit a little bit of form and have now Portsmouth are absolutely flying
today.
Norwich are flying. Albeit not the result today. And we've got us who are quite steadily. I think when you look at our points per game, we're picking up about 1.6 or whatever over the last 6 or 7 games.
We're comfortably sort of chugging up the division, aren't we? Yeah.
Well, we carry on this, we'd be comfortably safe by the end of the season. If we carried on the form we've currently got over the last, well, really probably since the new year, we'd be more than comfortable. It's
a massive game for both clubs, but I think even more so for them just because of where they are sat in the league.
What approach do you think we need to go here? Do you think we go for this really solid?
I don't know. The thing is, I know you're saying that West Brom are obviously struggling for goals in it, but they've got some dangerous players. They've got Isaac Price, is a really, really well respected sort of player in the league, like one of the highly tipped sort of youngsters. They got players like Madja. They've got some solid players throughout the team. I just think that they're probably just in a massive spiral of like lack of confidence. So the first goal, as it always is massive, but especially in a game like that where if they go one behind, you're right, that stadium all of a sudden becomes properly toxic.
I think it's one that personally I'd be getting Harry Clark back in on the right. I think the danger he can bring in pushing
crosses as well. Want some crosses.
Yeah, I think crosses because I think defensively they're struggling. Obviously they've got Christian Bielik at the back as well, but yeah, I think it's one that I think crosses will be important. I think Luke Chambers and
do you know what?
Harry Clark will be important. I also there's a big part of me that, and I know we'd said this in the last game. There's a big part of me that thinks either Cody or Doherty may be out for like a ranking.
Rotate it out a little bit.
Rotate it around and maybe just have a slightly better passer in the middle of that pitch.
I agree, and I think we need to get on top of them early. So like you just said about wing play is going to be quite important, getting crosses into the box and actually making it really sort of horrible for them to have to defend.
And for everything we've just said, is there probably an argument to say they're not, when you look at their squad, I think pace is something they massively struggle with in regards to they've got quite a lot of kind of lumpy, not the quickest. Is it a game
boys.
for TC?
Yeah, it may well
Probably
be.
is.
Yeah,
I know we've just criticised. Or Lieburn, because I do think sometimes Lieburn can pick up, and he's got a little bit of a yard of pace, but with the strength, maybe.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, Jones will have done his homework, and he'll have looked into sort of where they struggle most in terms of conceding as well. If they're a team that are really struggling against sort of crosses into the box with corners and stuff like set pieces, we'll probably go with Dykes and Lieburn and just try and pummel them a little bit. I'm intrigued. I'll be interested if Sichenje stays in as well, and if that back line stays as it was. But you're right, maybe Clark might rotate out for Ramsey. Who knows? But yeah, what a massive game that is going to be.
Huge. Well, let's move on from there. Final one, we'll just bring up the league table quickly. So there were points over this weekend in the last few games, kind of a few days worth of games, so I started to get a little bit worried at one point. You had Leicester picking up the points, you had Blackburn picking up points, Portsmouth. But that result does keep us in... Well, I think we might have dropped down. Can't remember. 17th.
No,
so
we leapfrogged Norwich.
Yeah, so we might have actually gone up one, but 40 points, 7 points above relegation. Once again, I think if you were given that at the beginning of the season, 33 games in, for sitting on 40 points, 7 points above relegation, you'd be...
Well, funny enough, when we did our prediction at the beginning of the season, we put us in sixth. Both of us. We didn't even tell each other, but we both had us in 16th. And we're on target for that sort of finish at the moment. Now, you mentioned about the games where sort of Blackburn and Portsmouth have obviously picked up points as well. They're still below us, albeit I think Portsmouth got a game in hand.
Portsmouth got a game in hand.
But what it has also done is it's created a bit of a sort of gap between like West Brom, Leicester, and then there's a bit of a gap now, which again just heaps that pressure on West Brom.
We've only got to look at, for example... You look at Leicester, if they say next game don't win...
We saw their fixture list.
And we win, we go 10 points clear of them with 12 games to go.
They've got some tough games.
And they've got some awful games coming up. So I think when you look at it, 10 points sometimes can be... I don't think it's scoffed at, but you realise how hard in a relegation fight, how long and hard that is to kind of claw back.
Oh yeah, and scrapping 3 points when you're in bad form is gold dust. Like,
we've got 13 games less this season, and let's be honest, potentially 3 wins is going to keep us up.
Yeah.
And 4 wins would take us to 52, and pretty much
unheard of. Go down
I think it's the highest points total in like the last 10 years would be on that. So we've got 4 wins in that. We've still got to play Sheffield Wednesday. We've still got to play Oxford.
Yeah.
We've still got to play West Brom. Don't get me wrong, we've got some tough games, but I also think as well, I think people underestimate at the end of the season,
the middle teams that aren't
playing for anything. You do pick up some really strange results at that point where the season kind of hits a bit of holiday mode, and if you still got something to fight for. So
we've still got Norwich, for example, who aren't going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're getting relegated, so that could be one of those sort of games as well. But yeah, you're right. They'll be
healthy.
Yeah, it's looking quite good in my opinion. And I think if you'd have offered that to Nathan Jones at this point in the season, he'd have snapped your hand off.
I think we're about a couple of results off kind of getting to that position where we can all start. I still feel
it'd be nice to do it early.
Yeah, we have. We have got some tough games. We got, even though 2 home, we got Birmingham, Wrexham, and then I think we're to Borough away after West Brom.
Some tough.
So I think there's a little run of games that is quite tough, and every game's tough and whatever. But
there's going to be swings and roundabouts. It's a roller coaster, and also. You're right. If we sort of go 3 games in a row with no points, and then all of a sudden Leicester and West Brom decide to go on a little run,
win a couple of games,
it starts getting really squeaky again. So
no, we need to, as quick as possible, get to that point where we just feel comfortable enough that you're kind of in that safe zone. So, well, there we are. Well, thank you so much for listening again.
Just quickly, I did put out a little X post just to see if anyone had a couple of comments, and I did get a couple back actually, so it's worth us just very quickly going over those. I had one from Chris, sent one in. He has said it was the definition of a battle till the end performance. Very good point in the end, which looked impossible before a ball was kicked. Jones and Bell showing why they're first and second for Player of the Year. Liked what Sichenje brought, and Sonny Carey doing Sonny Carey things, and I think they're all things that we've sort of gone over today.
Definitely.
Great points, and also like I'm with him on that one. To be fair, before the ball was kicked today, I didn't give us much of a chance. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we can't be more happy really than what we've seen. One other one from Dara. Lieburn very good when he came on, won a lot of headers. His partnership with Dykes worked as well.
Yeah, and I think with that one, it's an interesting one because similar. I don't think we've seen it work consistently, and I think we've kind of seen games where it feels too clunky. Other games where it seems to click.
Today it worked, and the timing.
Today, I don't know if it's just timing of him coming on as a sub, that burst of energy. I don't know. I think it's one that definitely we're struggling to find out what partnership is going to work up there. There's lots of options, and I'm pretty confident we've now got enough options. We will find something that works. So.
Yeah, we've got enough in that squad rotation, especially up on the top of the pitch, to actually. It will differ depending on the games that we come up against, but
definitely. Second time lucky. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again. We've also got the huge game against West Brom on Tuesday. So we'll have the new episode uploaded on Wednesday morning. Also, just a reminder, if you do enjoy these, please do remember to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Really appreciate it. It helps us out in growing the channel and keep bringing, hopefully, content that you enjoy. So, we'll see you on the next one.